You are welcome. I wish you fruitful observations and joining basis back home. The distinguished colleagues, today, the 6th day of February 2025, this is an old announcement. Shouldn't be today. Well, let us announce that on the 6th day of February 2025 happens to have been the birthday of distinguished Senator Hosseini Babangida Oba. I want to wish him a happy birthday on behalf of the Senate and many happy returns, long life, prosperity, and more years of service to his fatherland. Distinguished colleagues, on the 10th day of February 2025, the birthday of very distinguished Senator Bomai Ibrahim Mohammed. On behalf of the Senate, I want to wish distinguished Senator Bomai Ibrahim Mohammed happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Congratulations. The Special Ad Hoc Committee on Crude Oil Theft that was headed by distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Ubah of blessed memory will now be chaired by distinguished Senator Ned Nwoko. Delta North, please take over and deliver expeditiously. Leader of the Senate. Any petition? No petition. Leader of the Senate. Order, please.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Olubeyi Fadeyi Oluwole on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as altered, Alteration Bill 2025 SB 694. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The Senate Clerk.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, Alteration Bill 2025 SB 694. First reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as altered. Alteration Bill 2025 SB 694. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Kaka Shehu Lawal, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, on the Armed Forces Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 695. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Armed Forces Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 695, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Armed Forces Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 695, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Mohammed Dandose Muntari on the Federal Medical Center Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 696. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Medical Center Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 696, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 696, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Kalu Oji Uso on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, Alteration Bill 2025 SB 697. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, Alteration Bill 2025 SB 697, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, Alteration Bill 2025 SB 697, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Nwoko Ned Munir on the Federal Road Safety Commission Act 2007 Amendment Bill 2025 SB 698. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Road Safety Commission Act 2007 Amendment Bill 2025 SB 698, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Road Safety Commission Act 2007 Amendment Bill 2025 SB 698, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. The first order of the day is the second reading of a bill standing in my name on the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, Akwa Ibom State Establishment Bill 2025, SB 675. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, the 11th day of December 2024. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the bill, I will like to present the lead debate in pursuance of my motion that the bill be read for the second time. And if I have your permission, sir, I would like to just do the lead debate. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the general principles of the bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, Akwa Ibom State, and for related matters 2025. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 11 December 2024. And Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, before I go on the lead debate, let me refer us to the title as contained in my lead debate. The title that is here is Lead Debate on the Federal University of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Abo, Imo State, 2021. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I wish to say that this was a mistake. It's called Printer's Devil, but I accept responsibility for this, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, and I wish to have it corrected properly as the bill for an act, lead debate on the bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, Akwa Ibom State, and for related matters, 2025. And I invite the Secretariat to kindly note.
What we have here is Imo State.
Sorry, sir.
What we have is Imo State.
Yes, that's why I've corrected it, sir. I saw the correction, and I believe the Secretariat has noted that.
What is the corrected version?
Clerk, are we? Okay. And Mr. President, I believe it's okay for me to continue. Yeah, I've corrected. Yeah.
Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President, and very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I rise to formally move that the title of the lead debate, for record purposes, be corrected to read as the lead debate on the bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, Akwa Ibom State, and for related matters 2025. Mr. President, I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion by the Senate Leader to correct the title of the lead debate on the Federal University of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences to be in consonance with the provisions of the other paper. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in support that the amendment, yes.
I mean, the amendment should take note of the SB, because the SB on the other paper is 675, but what you are having here is 783. Which one is correct?
The motion has been moved and seconded, and I think that it should be put to question. Mr. President, please.
No, it is further correcting that in addition to changing the title of the lead debate, we should also remember that to change the SB to reflect the bill as 6771. It's 675.
Mr. President, let me just emphasize that I listened to distinguished Senator Ani. There is actually no basis for an amendment. What we have on the other paper is SB 675. What Senator Ani was talking about, SB 783, is actually the correction that we are seeking to make. So there's no need for any further amendment. And the minority leader in seconding it had expressly stated that in accordance with what is on the other paper.
Yes. So his point of order is noted, and those in support of the amendment say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So we now read a bill to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture and to establish the Federal University of Agriculture back in Akwa Ibom State, and for related matters 2005, 2025, SB 675. The amendment is carried. You may proceed to espouse your lead debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, here is the lead debate on the general principles of the bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, Akwa Ibom State, and for related matters 2025. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 11 December 2024. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, this bill seeks to establish the proposed university in ABAC, Akwa Ibom State, an agrarian community notable for the production of various agricultural produce. As such, the university will provide the enabling environment for robust agricultural practice, as well as boost agricultural production in the country. Agriculture, being one of the most predominant means is livelihood in the country, agriculture being one of the most predominant means of livelihood in the country has contributed immensely to the nation's GDP. Demands for agricultural products are rising rapidly due to unprecedented rise in population. Therefore, establishment of specialized universities as contemplated by this bill is sacrosanct, as it will provide the platform for research and innovations, as well as acquisition of the requisite educational skills to accelerate agricultural growth. The objectives of this bill, among others, are to encourage the advancement of learning and to hold out to all persons without distinction of race, creed, sex, or political conviction, to develop and offer academic and professional programs leading to the award of certificates, first degrees, postgraduate research, diploma, and higher degrees, with emphasis on planning, developmental, and adaptive skills in agriculture and environmental disciplines. To produce socially mature agriculturists with capabilities not only to understand the agricultural need of Nigeria as a nation, but also to exploit existing agro infrastructure and improve on it to develop new ones, and to undertake any other activities that is appropriate for a University of Agriculture of the highest standards. On this note, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I respectfully commend this bill for your kind support with a view to fast-tracking the legislative processes that will lead to its expeditious passage by the National Assembly. I thank you all, and I want to say that in line with our Order 76.3, the compendium of financial implication is hereby attached. Once again, I thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues.
The minority leader. Oh.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I thank you for this opportunity to make my contribution to this debate. Mr. President, looking at this bill, it is a very, very straightforward bill. And Mr. President, it also synchronizes with the desire of government to diversify our economy. And most part of this country, including this part that is considered for the location of this university, is agrarian. And I think that also combining it with the fact that it's also an area that is afflicted most times with these environmental hazards, it is appropriate and germane at this point to see the situation, the institution there. And so I encourage my colleagues to support this bill to be read a second time so that we can move on with it and assure the establishment of this institution. I so second and support, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Njenje.
Mr. President, thank you very much. My name is Senator Abdul Njenje, and I represent Bauchi Center, Bauchi State. Mr. President, this is a very timely bill that underscores the importance of agriculture, particularly in the Niger Delta area. Mr. President, even though our nation is an oil-producing nation, but still an agrarian nation in perspective. Nowhere in this country does agriculture not flourish. And therefore, it is important to have a specialized unit that deals with specialized courses, particularly agriculture. Over the years, Mr. President, there seems to have been a unanimity that everything oil is in the Niger Delta, and therefore anything agriculture is not in the Niger Delta. That is false. That's a very false narrative. We travel across the crannies of the Niger Delta, and we have seen agriculture. We have seen farmers all across the Niger Delta states. So it is important for all of us to appreciate that what is good for the gander is good for the goose. Therefore, agriculture in Abak, a quiet town in Akwa Ibom, with a specialized discipline, will attract attention all across the Niger Delta, whereby its kids and kin will be able to study agriculture, will be able to become agricultural farmers, and will be able also to look across the nation and become what they want to become. Therefore, when you establish a university of this nature and people get the best out of the agricultural facility, then you are expanding their horizon, you are expanding their perspective, you are giving them options. It is not every one of them or every one of us that will play a role in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. And therefore, there are people who inherently do not wish to be associated with oil and gas, but if you don't create option for them, you let them with no option but just to remain idle. And therefore, when you establish agriculture with specialized units in Niger Delta, you are encouraging people and you are also bringing people to unite. You are not asking people from all over the country to also apply to this university. And when they apply, they come back, and that will bring also an enhanced unity that is much needed, especially at this time of our history. I therefore support this move, and I encourage my colleagues, members of the Senate, to just do so for so many reasons outlined by the mover of the nation, the motion, the seconder, and some of us that have also spoken about this motion, this bill. So it's important that we see it, that is apt, it's timely, and therefore it's important that we give it the Nigerian recognition, because this is a Nigerian project. It's not Akwa Ibom, it's not Abak. It's a Nigerian project that we must all support. I thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Adams Oshimole.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to draw the attention of the Chief Whip that the President has been arrested by the Senate leader and other senators in clear breach of the rules of the Senate. That said, may I be allowed to proceed? My name is Adams Ali Oshomole. I represent the great people of Edo North in Edo State. I rise to support all those who have spoken that this bill merits a second reading. But that said, I want to remind all of us, each time I hear people make comment about an institution in a particular place will provide opportunity for the people of that area, I think we are making a mistake. Any institution in Nigeria, being a federal institution in particular, is for the Nigerian nation. Number two, I am particularly fascinated when we cite institutions outside the state capitals. It reminds me of what it used to be in those days in the First Republic. Sir Ahmadu Bello set up Ahmadu Bello University, not in Kaduna, that was the capital, but in Zaria. And Awolowo was set up one in Ife, not in Ibadan, that was the capital of Western Nigeria. And I can go on and on and on. So for me, we have two things we must consider in location of institutions of any type. The need to ensure consciously that we achieve even development that are not concentrated in the 36 state capitals. The benefit of this is that people who are clamoring for more states need to be reassured that every part of Nigeria, and indeed every part of a state, can and should benefit from federal presence and state presence without necessarily being state capital. And so the idea of starting a university in Abak, which has been described rightly as an agrarian community, for me, it fits into our responsibility as a national as Senate to ensure that institutions are located in rural communities. That way, we will halt rural-urban drift, because you can find life outside the state capital. And we achieve, as I said earlier, the whole commitment to evil development of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, regardless of whether or not your area is a state capital. It bears just to add that those who are speaking about the need to refocus on agriculture, for me, the benefit of that is that a lot of our young people need to know that to be a farmer is not to be a primitive guy. That indeed farming is one of the most elegant professions. So those statements will be made by establishing institutions such as this. And therefore, I join those who have spoken to say that this bill, this University of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences at Abok is justified, and I urge my colleagues to support that it goes through or pass through the second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, dismissed Senator Agadaga.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Chief Benson Sunday Agadaga is my name. I speak for the good people of Bayelsa East Senatorial District in Bayelsa State. Mr. President, I rise to give my support for the creation and establishment of University of Agriculture at Abak in Akwa Ibom State, as ably moved. Mr. President, this bill seeks to satisfy two cardinal sectors of the budget, tries to promote education, which occupies the third position in the budget. A country that does not educate itself is a country that is bound it's bound to be in doom. A country that cannot feed itself is also no country. And so this bill tends to satisfy these two conditions, these two areas of very important desires in the country. When we established this school, this university, it will also help to check capital flight. Many of our students who leave the country for other places to study do so because of lack of admission. A lot of our students are going to even Ghana, Benin Republic, and others because we didn't have enough spaces for them. Now, with the establishment of this university, it will provide more opportunities for our students to study here in Nigeria and reserve our money in our economy. Mr. President, I rise to give support to this bill. I want the bill to go for the second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Benson Kobowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Kombowe Friday Benson, representing Bayelsa Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, the need for
the establishment of an agricultural institution in Akwa Ibom State, Abak in particular, cannot be overemphasized. Mr. President, sir, all over the world, when there are observations of poverty and unemployment, leaders choose to take the course of engaging the members of that society in agriculture. And agriculture, as all of us know, is the major employer of labor. It has been so observed also in China when Chairman Mao came up to become president. He saw the lacuna. He saw what was wrong, the reasons why there was unemployment and poverty in the land. In 1893, when he became the president, up to 1976, he came up with a policy of taking the people back to agriculture. And that drive was not just to take the people to agriculture, but that drive was to bring about industrialization and also to tackle the issues of economy and unemployment. Today, Nigeria, that is where all of us leaders, from Mr. President to the Senate and to every other Nigerian, ought to have thought about. And that is why establishing a University of Science and Technology, agriculture, for me is a route and a road to ensure that we train our youths to take over the agricultural space and to ensure that technology is also brought in to the area of agriculture, instead of just depending and relying on our subsistence systems of farming. And that is why I and my constituency, with all the emphasis, are here to support and second and whatever over this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Ekong Samson.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Ekong Samson. I'm from Akwa Ibom, close to Abak, where the proposed university is to be sited. I represent Akwa Ibom South here in the Senate. I trust that there's considerable convergence of thoughts that this bill is well framed. It has been well canvassed about the intervening role of agriculture in our national matrix. But beyond that, the 10th Senate has created a tapestry, it's created some watershed about our commitment to education. I think this is very important. I attended a session here some time ago where concerns were raised about what was seen as the sprout of universities in Nigeria. And I disagreed readily. We've not even had enough. We need more universities in Nigeria. And government has to meet up with the challenge of broadening access to education. The proposed university is to be sited in Abak. Well, I thank my colleagues for their framing. Abak, but it's actually Abak. When I look at Udende and Zam, our distinguished colleagues here, and they lay claim to Benue, being the food basket of Nigeria, sometimes I shake my head. I nod my head too, because Abak, Ika, Itemekbo, Mpairin, where I come from, and the adjoining belts forms a very major food basket for this country. Against this backdrop, citing a university for agriculture in Abak is well timed, quite commendable, and it clearly addresses the concerns for agriculture in Nigeria. Maybe as an addition, this is one project I must confess that is also very dear to our uncommon Senate president, because it sits directly within his central district. But the point remains, and this point must be noted, that one of the persuading factors for this government, and indeed for the 10th Senate, has been our attitude to education. There could be no better legacy, no better milestone, no better testimony than advancing the flanks of education. So today, a very important opportunity has been presented for us to sustain the tempo of what we have come to identify as a major intervention from the Senate, which is our commitment to broadening access to education. And this is not just a facet, it has to do with agriculture. It is specialized. So, on behalf of the home front, but this touches on the home front that I represent here, I'm very excited about the framing, the content, and indeed the timing of this bill. I think this intervention will create a quantum leap for us as a country, and it will make those in Benue to give Akwa Ibom even more respect, because they will appreciate that what Benue can do, Akwa Ibom can do even better in terms of food production. So, on behalf of Akwa Ibom South, and indeed the people of Akwa Ibom State that I speak for on this particular occasion, I align strongly with the current of thought that this bill is well framed, well presented, and indeed it will be a game changer for us as a country. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. I think you want to add something? Because actually the discussion has been very exhaustive, but if you wish, distinguished colleagues, let me say that from my perspective, the Abak is an agrarian community, but it's a federal constituency. The entirety of the federal constituency contributed a lot to agriculture in the First Republic. In fact, it was from this Abak that they took the first seat from there to go and develop in Malaysia what we now have as farm produce in commercial quantity in Malaysia. So going back to agriculture is a welcome development for the nation. But maybe when we go for the public hearing, I'll be able to know the correct location that this should be cited, because just by the Abak itself is an Institute of Agriculture, which was established in the 50s and then modernized by my administration when I was a governor, with well over 80 structures on ground, which could be used to take off. But that would mean approaching the state government to be able to grant that concession. That is at a place called Uruwanam, which is still within the area of the Abak, and that can take off very easily. They have sample farms, they have everything. He had operated for 33 years as Institute of Agriculture. So that's where my mind is going into, but that can be discussed at the public hearing when the communities will come, and then the government will be able to lend a voice to enrich the debate. So let me plead with our colleagues so that we cut it short, and then we still have ongoing budget defense, and even the Deputy Senate President is currently representing me at the Afrexim, Stroke King's College launching of the cardio and hematology hospital here in Abuja, first of its kind in Africa. And that's why some of the senators are not here. Senator Suko and a lot of them are there now. So we may need to finish quickly to go and brush up the budget for possible presentation tomorrow and next. So those in support that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act to provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, Akwa Ibom State, and for related matters, 2025, SB 675, second reading.
One minute. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act in order to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, ABAC, in Akwa Ibom State and for related matters 2025. SB 675, second reading taken. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Agricultural Colleges and Institutions to report back to the Senate within 21 days. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is a resumption of adjourned consideration of the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the David Umahi University of Health Sciences, Uburu, Ebonyi State, Establishment Bill 2025, SB 365. Distinguished senators will recall that further consideration of the report at the Committee of Whole was deferred at clause 5 and referred back to the committee on Wednesday, 2nd October 2024 for further legislative action. The committee is now ready with the report. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move that the Senate do resolve into the Committee of the Whole to resume consideration of the report. Mr. President, the minority leader who is standing in for the chairman of the Committee on TED Fund has actually just informed me that there will be the need to lay the report all over again in view of the amendment that has been made. So may I, at this point, Your Excellency, Mr. President, Mr. President, I am well guided by the Secretariat that to the effect that this is only a resumption of our consideration, there will be no need to relay the report again. I therefore we want to stick to what is in our chamber brief, that I'm only standing up to move that the Senate at this point resolve to a committee of the whole to resume further consideration of this report. Mr. President, I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion ably moved by the Leader of the Senate that the Senate resolves into the Committee of the Whole for further consideration of the report. I so second.
Colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So we move into Committee of the Whole to do the clause-by-clause consideration.
Sir, you know you have, we have been talking to Lara to bring the permanent one, and he's been giving excuses. You know the last time you said we should even...
When the Senate to take a resolution.
No, is the contractor, sir.
Yes, the Senate can take a resolution that the contractor be changed. Yeah, as chairman of Senate Services, you are the one that should report to us.
Okay.
And we need the kind of instrument that can enable us to do electronic voting.
Okay.
That is what was in the old chambers before this renovation.
Okay.
And in the 8th Senate, we could vote from where we were sitting, and it will reflect. This one, the facilities are not there.
I agree with you, sir.
Nigeria is the largest black nation in the world. You cannot go to all these small countries from South Africa to Angola, and then you go to their chambers, and what you get is you speak, and the interpretation machine is there. It's interpreted in different languages, in French, in Portuguese, and all that. But it's only in these chambers that we don't have that. We have pleaded and pleaded and pleaded. They say it is FCDA, or is it FCT that is handling the renovation? We don't have a say, but we are the ones to use it. The inconvenience cannot allow us to continue this way. So we will give you another 1 month to discuss with the contractor to bring the facilities that suit these chambers, after which we will have no option to take our decision. Distinguished colleagues, I apologize on your behalf. The contractor cannot be bigger than the institution. So, clauses 1 to 6. Those in support say aye. Clause 6. We've done from clauses 1 to 5. So we start from clause 6. Is that right? Or we stepped it down at clause 5.
Because of the composition of the council. The composition of the council was the issue there, where they told you have to inform it based on the NUC guidelines and establishment. Now we're proposing zonal representation using the 6 political zone. That was where we stopped.
Composition of the council, page 6, clause 6. Yes, distinguished Senator Njenje.
Chairman, I recall the last time we had a discussion, we saw about this composition of the council because of the nature of the composition of the sponsor of the bill. If you go down from Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, 1 person from Minister of Education, 9 persons representing variety of interests.
Sorry, were you rising?
Yeah.
Did you rise?
Oh, you want me to rise?
Okay.
Okay.
I saw you rising.
Yeah, I was trying to copy the president. Yeah, I remember. Thank you, Mr. President. the composition. No, I've missed page 7, no? Page 6. Rather than 4 people, I would like to the 4 persons representing a variety of interests and broadly representation of the whole federation. I think that is in order. But rather than 4, no, that is the original bill. You could see from the last recommendation. So they have discounted those humongous representation in the council, which was about 20. I would like the idea of the president representing 6 people from each geopolitical region of this country and stop there, rather than bringing in members of the Senate, 9 of them, members of congregation. So I think this is a standard 6 persons from each geopolitical zone and full stop.
What is the normal practice? Professor Anthony, Annie, what is the normal practice?
Normal practice is 4 persons coming from the representing this variety of interests we are talking about.
How many persons?
4.
Instead of 9?
Yes, sir.
Then what about the geopolitical zones of the country?
Before now, there was no such consideration.
It's a university.
I think that should do is there is a standard. We have to do what happens in other universities.
Yes. It's okay. Professor Annie, thank you. Yes, distinguished Senator Alero.
Distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, this issue of geopolitical zoning is a new concept or innovation. What Professor Annie is talking about, at that time, there was no geopolitical zoning. Zoning came up, and I think around 1998, during the Constituent Assembly. So it has now become an accepted phenomenon. And virtually every state belongs to a particular geopolitical zone. Even appointments are made based on geopolitical zoning. And our laws, whenever we are making appointments, whenever we are recommending appointments, we always based on geopolitical zoning. So the proposal made by Senator Lingi is very apt and so we should go by geopolitical zoning instead of saying 4 persons representing various interests in the country. Because various interests in the country, they could be in Abuja, they could be in Lagos, they could even be in Kaduna without having national spread. So this is more representative than just saying 4 persons from various interests. Thank you.
Yes, this is Senator Dixon.
Mr. President, my dear colleagues, Henry Seraki Dixon, Bayelsa West. Mr. President, I don't think there's anyone here seated, knowing the realities of contemporary Nigeria that we're all managing, that will be opposed to the idea of recognition of all the 6 zones being represented in a federal body we are creating. But you see, here we are dealing with an institution. Here we are discussing the composition of the governing council of an institution. We are not talking of, for example, setting up the board of a federal agency. This is a governing council of a university. And it has a format And that's why I agree with distinguished colleague, Professor Anit, when he says these things have a format. It is, when we have made the law, it is for the appointing officer. It may take the chancellor, for example, and they have a way of doing it by convention. They will go to one part of the country, put one traditional ruler as chancellor. It will now, all of that is an attempt to manage the country's diversity. I don't think we need to, at this point of setting up the governing council of a university, not a board, not a federal parastatal, governing council of a university. We will be over-regulating. We will be over-restricting the appointing officer when we say one member from each. But I don't think there's even any governing council of a federal university that is composed like that. When we pass the law the way it does, it is now left for the appointing officer. Being a federal institution, it will now pick from here, it will pick from there, depending on the available resources ahead of him. So I am in support that we don't over-regulate this. Let's allow the appointing officer and the ministry that will make the recommendations, and the leadership will consult the discretion to compose of it. Let's not over-regulate it. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Dixon, we have so many federal universities in the country. So I would have loved a situation whereby we could say mutantis, 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 because we can make a law for one federal institution different from the other federal institution. So, and we are not even going to be well guided by the clerk because he doesn't have any other university council in front of him. You want to add something? So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, Senate President sitting at chair. Mr. President, I'm talking from the background of the fact that I was former chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education and TED Fund. While I sympathize with the view of Senator Njenje and supported by Senator Alero, but the fact remains that we have a template. We have a template. All the universities, all their laws are tailored along what is presented here. So if you change this one now, it means you have to change everything, which is not good for the system. And it's an academic environment. So it's where excellence is the watchword. So I think we should allow it to remain like that. I agree. I mean, I share your statement. But the fact that if you change this one now, it means you have to change the entire act, establishing all the universities in the country, including the University of Calabar, Mr. Chairman. So I think it should remain this way. Since there's no problem at all. No problem among the other universities.
Did you listen to what I said?
I agree with you.
I give you one.
I agree with you.
You said nine persons representing a variety of interests.
Yes.
It could be onion sellers, it could be potato sellers, it could be good sellers, and broadly representative of the whole federation to be appointed by the president. Is that what is reflected in all other university councils? Before you come back to add 4 persons appointed by the Senate from its members, before you come back to add 2 persons appointed by congregation, and then 1 person appointed by convocation, whatever, all these things, that's why I'm saying that we should have comparative analysis in order to make sure that it is in conformity with the established template of all other universities. And unless we have that before us, we can't proceed. We should. So move the motion. Move the motion.
It's an observation, sir. I'm not watching it well. There's a recommendation. This is a recommendation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, sit as chair. In order for us to review the bill, in order to be sure that it goes in line with what we have in the other universities, I request that I move that we should step down this bill until the next legislative day so that all the matters therein will be resolved. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion that this bill be stepped down for the Senate to reconcile all reconciliables for further consideration. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, in order to avoid setting up a university, federal university composition that is different from what obtains in all other federal universities that we have in the country, and to bring it in conformity with the standard templates. The motion has been proposed by the Deputy Senate President, seconded by the Minority Leader, that this be stepped down until comparative analysis are carried out. Is it the view of the Senate? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Chamber should collect these reports immediately so that by the time you go and after the comparative analysis to bring it in conformity with the existing compositions of other universities, automatically the Leader of the Senate, you wish to move that we report progress.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the Senate revert back to plenary to enable the chairman report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, I second the motion that the Senate reverse to plenary to enable the chair report progress. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that this chamber do revert to plenary in order for the chair to report progress. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We will discuss it outside this place. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole resumed consideration of report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TERFON on the David Umahi University of Health Sciences, Uburu, Ebonyi said, and established as follows. Establishment Bill 2025 approved earlier recommendations 1 to 5, and then ran into a hitch in recommendation 6 in respect of the composition, and resolved that that this be stepped down for the composition to reflect the the existing standard in other federal institutions in the country, and thereafter it could be brought back to the Senate. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes, Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate, you may wish to move for adjournment to enable us to continue with our budget process. Move for adjournment of today's sitting to enable us to continue with our budget processes.
Mr. President, let me again thank all our distinguished colleagues, especially members of the Committee on Appropriation for the ongoing work. Having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I hereby move that the Senate do adjourn till Wednesday, 12th February 2024 at 11 a.m. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in view of the motion moved by the Senate Leader, I second that this Senate stands adjourned. I so
I
second.
A motion has been moved and seconded that this August Assembly do stand adjourned to the 12th day of February 2025. Those in support of the adjournment say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned to the 12th day of February 2025 at 11 a.m. prompt.
Mr. President, if you adjourn